All right, so this, of course, is the big story that we are tracking on Fine Print tonight. Kim Jong-Un was declared as the supreme leader of North Korea in December 2011. And within 3 months in neighboring Russia, Vladimir Putin claimed a resounding victory in presidential elections. Back then, Moscow had supported sanctions against Pyongyang. But over the course of the last decade, there's a lot that has changed. The world has changed. Geopolitics has changed. And friends have changed. This shifting diplomacy is the cover story tonight in Fine Print. The United States is talking about a possible meeting between Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, and Kim Jong-Un. Now, both Russia and North Korea are pretty quiet at the moment, but that hasn't stopped murmurs about what this meeting could, of course, mean if it happens. One thing is certain, the war in Ukraine has forced Kremlin to reassess its relationship with Pyongyang. There are talks of North Korea providing arms to Russia. But if the meeting takes place, then Putin could, of course, find himself confronted with a pretty tough negotiator. Now, Kim Jong-un knows that Moscow is pretty desperate for ammunitions. The meeting is expected to take place in Russia's Vladivostok, a port city not far from North Korea. The catalogue is expected to have artillery shells and anti-tank missiles. But what is in it for North Korea if it were to send off so many of its artillery shells and other ammunition? For decades now, Pyongyang has been starved under sanctions, so it desperately needs money and food. Military support from Russia could also be a part of the deal. But experts say that the most worrying request could be about nuclear weapons. North Korea is still struggling to master certain key strategic weapons. So Kim Jong-un could, of course, ask Vladimir Putin for some advanced technology. Now, Russia has shown apprehensions about this in the past. However, it remains to be seen if the war has now pushed Russia to a certain level of desperation. Now, there is something for both the nations, but it will be pretty naive to see the external factors. Russia and North Korea have been isolated by the West. Both countries have been termed as hostile, and there are attempts of completely cutting them off from the rest of the world. Now, Moscow and Pyongyang are perfect examples of the old doctrine which says enemy's enemy is actually a friend. Not long ago, Kim's grandfather had founded North Korea with the backing from the Soviet Union. And now, Kim Jong-un is returning the favor by backing Russia and carving a new global order in Eastern Europe. All right, now to give us more perspective on this potential visit by Kim Jong-un to Russia, being joined by Mr. John Erath, who is a Senior Policy Director for the Center for Arms Control and Non-Proliferation, is joining us live from Washington, D.C. Mr. Erath, these are reports that state that the North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un, could, of course, be visiting Russia later this month, and there could be a deal where North Korea could end up giving arms and ammunition to Russia, which it needs very urgently because of the war that is ongoing, and in return, Russia, to a large extent, could in fact end North Korea's isolation. What do you make of this?
First thing I make is that it would seem incredible, even 2 years ago, that Russia would be approaching anyone for arms and ammunition. Russia, for decades, has prided itself on having a very large and well-equipped army. And we're seeing that those claims were, to some extent, propaganda, and that the rate of usage of Russian ammunition and materiel is such that they are now approaching other countries, countries that use similar technologies to provide the weapons and ammunition that they need. I think it's remarkable in this case that Russia is going to North Korea and not to China. I would assume that the Russians have approached the Chinese already and were turned down because China does not want to provide lethal assistance to Russia, even though it is a partner state. And so they're going to the case of last resort, to the pariah state that is North Korea.
Right, now, to be fair and to put it in context, the fact that the war has been going on for the last 18 months and Russia is running low, it is being reported, on ammunition and artillery shells. This is something that Ukraine and the Western allies of Ukraine, even the United States of America, have admitted that even they are running low on ammunition, for which ammunition are being sourced from places such as South Korea and even perhaps Pakistan for the Ukrainian war effort. For the Russians to now turn to the North Koreans would not come as that much of a surprise. But the question that I want to ask you is this: the fact that Russia and North Korea appear to be coming together in what many would now say punctures the sanctions that have been imposed by the West. How concerned do you think Washington would be?
I think there is certainly some concern on the part of policymakers in Washington, particularly with regard to missile technology. North Korea has recently tried to launch a space vehicle that failed spectacularly. And so they're having trouble with this. The technology for space launch vehicles and for military missiles is very similar. So it is possible that Russia could be providing some of the technology that the North needs to make more threatening, longer-range missiles in return for access to the supplies of ammunition and anti-tank weapons.
Absolutely, indeed. And also my final question to you, Mr. Erath, is this. Now, the Russians, in fact, managed to get these drones, which they've used to great effect from the Iranians. And now they're going and getting... This is the speculation that they may be getting ammunition, especially artillery shells, from the North Koreans. Now, these are nations that the Americans had tried through their sanctions to turn into pariah states. Does this now mean that these sanctions which the Americans had in fact intended on nations such as Iran and North Korea will no longer be effective because of the Ukraine war?
The sanctions will remain in place and will remain to be as effective as they were before because they are still cutting those countries off from access to Western technology and, to some extent, consumer goods. This is something Russia cannot provide. What Russia will be providing to North Korea, if this deal becomes a reality, would be some level of finance, some access to military technologies. But the key sanctions that remain in place that are hurting the economies of North Korea would remain as they are.
Right. All right. I think you've made a fair point. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Erath, for joining us and getting us all those insights there. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.